Very good afternoon, everyone. Hope you enjoyed your lunch and you are re-energized. My colleague Richard Quest was right about being enamored with your phone and just staring at your phone. I'm looking at you, sir, in the blue suit. I know, I've been multitasking all day, by the way. I'm glad you guys are laughing. I'm just checking if you're all awake and ready for this. My name is Eleni Giokos. I'm an anchor and correspondent at CNN. I'm delighted to be joining you for this focus group. We'll be looking at shaping the GCC's economic future through resource development. I kind of rebranded this and calling it, focusing on industrialization 1.0, because we're looking at value chains, we're looking at commodities, and how to export some of the finished products through these raw commodities. I'd like to welcome His Highness Sheikh Salman bin Khalid, Vice Chairman of Bahrain Factory for Mining. Welcome to Igor Raykhelson, Chairman, Bahrain Titanium, and founder and CEO of Interlink, as well as Meshary Al-Judaimi, Chairman of Foulath Holdings. Welcome to you. Great to be with you. You know, upon doing a lot of the research for this, I didn't know that Bahrain had the second largest aluminium smelter in the world. Did you guys know that? Yes? Hands up. Did you know? Okay, one or two people. Well, there we go. I've imparted new information, which is incredible because I think when we think about Bahrain, you know, a lot of people still think about oil and gas, but the minister earlier this morning reminded everyone that contribution of non-oil sector to GDP is 85%. So we're going to try and look at some of these opportunities that exist in the commodity space and also what else we can do to grow the sector. Your Highness, I'd like to start off with you. And I want to talk about Barefa, which is really interesting because you're going to be focusing on PGM refining. We know that Bahrain does not produce any PGMs. You're going to be bringing it in, refining it. It's an exciting project, huge investment. Tell me about this and when we can start to see these final products being produced.
So, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for allowing me to, showcase our project. Barefa is a state-of-the-art PGM refinery that will hopefully be complete by early 2027. We'll start hopefully construction by the end of this year. The plant will be consisting of producing several lines of metal products, including platinum, palladium, iridium, and others. And the annual capacity for the plant will be around 100 metric tons annually. And we're fortunate enough to learn from the industry experts in building such a sustainable project.
Brilliant. Okay, this is exciting. So 2027 is when it'll be online. So this is fascinating. We're going to talk about the competitive advantage of actually setting up in Bahrain and what that means. And I think, Igor, looking at Bahrain Titanium, the total investment, it's $100 million, the final investment down the line, $200 million. Tell me why you picked Bahrain for your titanium plant.
Well, thanks everybody to have come here and listen to me, first of all. We've been producing, distributing, and trading titanium for the last 35 years, and had a plant in Ukraine, has been operational for the last 15 years, but then unfortunately due to the political events that everybody's aware of, we had to idle the plant, and then we were kind of forced to find a new location for our facility, and which of course we wanted to enhance and take kind of a step forward in terms of technology and our ability to go downstream. So we looked at many different locations, comparing factors of production, political scenery, and at the end of the day, have concluded that this is perhaps the best location to start our facility, which will, as you had mentioned, will involve a $100 million investment from the get-go, and will ultimately probably consume $200 million, and then of course time will tell where that takes us going to the future.
That's brilliant. Okay, so I want to get Meshary into the conversation, and I'm curious about, again, reading into this, Foulath operating one of the largest fully integrated single-site steel complexes in the world, which is incredible. And you were telling me backstage just how much you contribute alone to GDP, which is mind-boggling.
That's true. Foulath owns two businesses basically, complementing each other. One is iron pelletizing. You're correct. The plant we have is the largest merchant pelletizing plant in the world. We produced 13 million tons of high-grade pellets in 2023. And we also own a steel-making business, a company called Sulb, that produces DRI and steel sections in Bahrain, primarily for middle to heavy sections, and then Jubail for light sections. In Bahrain, we contributed about 25% of the non-oil GDP in 2023.
That's very impressive, 25%. Okay, so this is called a focus group for a reason. We're going to have a roving mic, and then I will cue you when there are any questions. So please jot down your thoughts as we get into this even deeper. I come from South Africa, as I've told everyone. We have an abundance of incredible resources. There isn't a commodity that I have not covered in my career. The biggest issue that we face in SA is obviously not good access to electricity, intermittent. It's killed the steel sector, the aluminium smelting sector. It's such a big problem. Bahrain doesn't have that issue. You've got 100% access to electricity. It's uninterrupted. And I'm wondering what gives you the competitive edge comparing yourselves to other big steel, aluminium, titanium, or PGM producers, for example, like China, who clearly dominates and can do it very cheaply. So Igor, give me a sense of why.
Well, again, I can only address titanium because that's where my expertise is. But the factors of production I had mentioned are quite advantageous in Bahrain. Electricity is quite low, in effect, lower than that of many other countries in the world. But titanium scene is highly influenced by the political fragmentation that's taking place right now. You had mentioned China. China takes up about 60% of the world production of titanium. As a matter of fact, another interesting fact is that about 30 years ago when I started in the business, China did not produce literally no titanium. And in the last 30 years, they've become the biggest supplier of titanium products.
And does it do it cheaper than you can?
They can. I don't think they can. I don't think that really is the main factor given what is happening in titanium. The problem is that because of the political situation and the fact that most of the titanium is consumed in the Western world, U.S. being the largest market, there is a significant aversion to accept Chinese downstream product in the United States. Effectively, China is not qualified for the aerospace use, not yet anyway. And then, of course, when you get onto the critical application, medical or rotating use like the engine parts, US and Europe prefers to rely on other suppliers. This, of course, may change over time, but at the moment, at least, there are prohibitive duties that have been imposed on Chinese import of products that I just mentioned, and that, of course, gives rise to a competition, unlike Bahrain, who would have zero duty to compete with China, and not just with China, in a very proficient way.
Exactly, and the reason that you're able to, there's a free trade agreement, as most of you might know, with the United States. Hopefully it remains like that. We don't know what's going to happen next week. Let's not get into the US political landscape. But Meshary, I want you to touch on this issue of being competitive. Steel is tough. I've been to aluminium and steel smelters. I've seen what it takes. I've seen steel companies crumbling in South Africa because they just could not compete. How are you able to compete?
So we We use very advanced technology machines that leads to higher efficiency than many other plants. More importantly, in the iron making, we do have an edge of being a merchant plant. We source material from different sources, we blend, and we do it in a very efficient way. In our case, gas and electricity, compared to other places in the world, we know they produce with lower cost of energy. However,
so even though oil and gas is abundant here, other places in the world produce with lower cost of energy compared to what you have here, even though it's on your doorstep.
To specifically Bahrain, some other sources, some other countries use energy at a cheaper price. But what makes Bahrain different is a very modern infrastructure, industrial infrastructure. But more importantly, the ease of doing business in Bahrain pays off. So you do many things to optimize and to reach highest efficiency because of ease of doing business in Bahrain and cooperation with different regulators and government entities that makes it easier for you. At present, we're investing in a large shed building to store raw material. On top of that, we will install large solar plant. And what made that possible and what made it cost effective is a government entity that was willing to engage and ultimately agree a net metering arrangement that would make it not only environmentally friendly but also cost efficient.
Brilliant. I'm going to touch on the climate issue and energy in just a moment. I think it deserves quite a bit of time on that. Your Highness, I want you to jump in here and I want to be clear. And please, you guys are the experts here in Bahrain. My understanding is, in terms of natural resources, it's oil, gas, and aluminium. And everything else is imported. So even though the steel, I mean, you're getting iron ore from elsewhere. For you, Your Highness, you're going to be importing the PGMs. But yet, it still makes sense for Bahrain to do this because you're inserting yourself in a very lucrative industry. And let's be honest, we still need these raw materials and we need them for even the AI future, right? We all need the hardware. Tell me about why that makes sense for Bahrain.
Well, as you know, the region is growing rapidly, and I would say demand for these raw materials, especially in the region, is increasing. And having an extra, let's say, regional market provider or liquidity provider will, enhance the region's, economic needs and raw materials in order to, fully achieve their goals. And I'd say this is a great place to invest and develop these refineries and having them, just cater to the global economies.
And it's proximity as well, right? So it's all of these things. But you're also focusing on solar in terms of inputs for energy. How important is that, would you say? Because it's not base load, so you can't fully rely on solar, but it is something.
We want to be as eco-friendly as we possibly can, in line with the world's eco-friendly vision. So we're using as much solar as possible and any renewable energy that we could. And even in terms of recycling, we'll recycle as much of the byproducts as we possibly can in order to reduce waste or eliminate them completely. So, and we're fortunate to learn from the industry experts and scientists from around the world in order to achieve this.
So you mentioned, PGM mix, right? So that's like palladium. Help me out here, Johannes. Platinum.
Palladium, platinum, rhodium,
Yeah.
iridium, ruthenium, and hopefully in the future as well gold and silver.
Fantastic. Okay, that's a really good mix, right? And a lot of these have got industrial uses, and others are just stores of value. But palladium is really interesting because it's for autocatalytic converters in combustion engines, which I thought we were going to do away with, but clearly you find it very viable still to stay in this space.
I mean, I don't see how we'll move away completely from the combustional engines.
Yeah.
For vehicles, and I wouldn't say that the future is fully electric, but we're definitely improving in terms of the technology that we have, and these materials can cater to a wide variety of products. So I think it's a great opportunity for the region, and having an extra supplier, let's say, will benefit hopefully everyone.
So Igor, just like you have this problem, Igor and Meshary have this issue as well. Your industries are very energy intensive, but also very water intensive. We know that there's a lot of land degradation that's going on in Bahrain. We know what the issues are. We also know that this agenda to diversify the Bahraini economy even more and increase revenues from other sectors other than oil, which revenues, by the way, is still pretty significant, even though contribution to GDP has changed. How are you, as leaders of industry, in very dirty industries, let's call them what they are, taking these issues seriously on the climate perspective and making sure that you create sustainable sustainable companies? Igor, do you want to touch on that?
Well, I first of all don't want to say that it's that dirty, because we're not really extracting ore. We're going to be buying ore. So our business is to refine the ore and melt.
No, I get that, but you're still buying it, and someone else had to mine it. So in a way, your footprint still exists. And Meshary is laughing and smiling at me. But I get what you're saying. But at the end of the day, this industry, whether we like it or not, has a footprint, whether it's in country
Without
or
doubt,
other country.
but I think that we at Bahrain Titanium has to do what's in our power, and the footprint is definitely evident. But what we're going to try to do is, for example, is to recycle as much as we can. So I would say in the raw material mix, about 55% of the raw material is going to be our own generated scrap, and only 45% will be what's called titanium sponge, which is the primary contributor to the process. Clearly, as you mentioned, the process of melting, and then, of course, we're not going to stop at that. We're going to go into forging and ultimately into rolling. All three processes are highly energy intensive, the like of aluminum, not much different. And clearly, we are reliant on oil and gas, and yet, of course, we are more than welcome for the government to cooperate with us in basically using greener sources of energy like wind and sun, which is quite available in the region.
So that's your biggest issue, is sources of energy.
Absolutely.
Basically, to clean it up. It's not the process itself. Meshary.
I second Igor's point. Extraction, as you said, could be not the most environmentally friendly, but the processing itself is as friendly as we can make it in Bahrain. So we use the best technologies in both pelletizing and steel making. However, in pelletizing, we're going one step ahead with building the largest raw material shed in the world, as I said. This would protect the environment around us from flying dust from iron ore import. On top of that shed, we'll build and some other areas in the plant, we'll build a solar plant that would effectively produce 120 to 130 megawatts of power that will be exported to the grid. And that would be our bit of giving back to the environment. But in the steel making, we use the cleanest possible technologies, which is electric arc furnaces. And we're striving to achieve what the industry now labels green steel. We're mindful of that, and we're heading to that direction.
I mean, that's interesting. I was looking at the notion of green steel and whether that's just completely contradictory, and that's whether it's achievable. What's your personal view?
We're still struggling to understand what is defined as green steel, but at the end, we want to do our bit, and we want to do it as cleanest as possible. And I'm sure, in comparison, will be one of the greenest steel produced.
Maybe light green steel. Not green.
darker green than many other.
Yeah, maybe darker green. Okay. I want to check. Do you have questions based on what we've just discussed? Hands up if you have any questions for our panelists. Okay, let me continue then. All right. So I want to talk about expanding the value chain, not just stopping at processing, but actually manufacturing the final products. Obviously, with steel and titanium, you're plugging straight into the aerospace industry, defense industry. PGMs are important for the auto space and actually for medical space and all sorts of other industrial uses as well. Tell me what we're seeing right now in terms of the full value chain and how that can be expanded on further. Because I think what's important for people here in the audience to understand is that it makes sense to process and to create fully finished products where you're exporting all around the world. Who would like to touch on it? Igor?
Yes.
Yeah?
Well, the value chain consideration is of utmost importance to our company. And yet, of course, like with any other metal, it comes evident that first you have to melt it. So the first stage for us to melt the raw material into an ingot or slab, and then the next stage is, of course, to forge it into a billet or a plate. And then just beyond that, of course, there's a rolling procedure that basically makes it into a rod. There are a number of applications, and really no one company can do the whole thing. So effectively, we try to do what's in our power and basically take it downstream as much as we can. It's going to have to come in stages. We cannot grasp the whole value chain in one go, but ultimately, we want to get it down as much as we can, but that'll take years, I have to say.
Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight, Your Highness.
I'd say that in order to fully capitalize on the natural resources, one would have to invest heavily into downstreaming, thereby creating more jobs and more skill development. So you wouldn't just export the raw materials; you would also be able to produce the end products, or you can develop a whole ecosystem which will be more resilient to the market.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's such a good point. And whenever we talk about weaning ourselves off oil and gas, specifically in this region, there's this thinking of, what other sectors can be revenue generators. And I think a lot of people focus on finance, on the hospitality sector and so forth. But this is pure industry, and pure industry is such an important function, and manufacturing such an important function of a very stable economy. Do you think, Your Highness, that in terms of what we're seeing across the region, this isn't only a strategy for Bahrain, but can be replicated across other industries? Because we've got competitive advantage in terms of the ports, in terms of where we are, in terms of oil and gas, for electricity generation and so forth, and clearly understanding of hardcore industry.
Yes, I mean, obviously we would need to hire, expertise, bring in the expertise in this field so that we can learn how to, fully implement or, capitalize on the resources and make it run more efficiently, cleaner, using, green energy as much as possible. Taking care of the environment as well. I think it's a great, opportunity to do it, especially in this region, because, as you know, this region is, growing very rapidly, let's say. So I think there will be huge demand, and hopefully the region can be a contributor to the rest of the world.
That's true. Yeah. Igor, you were talking about shifting from Ukraine because of geopolitical issues. Clearly, with Russia invading Ukraine, you had a close-up shop come to Bahrain, and it makes sense for you. You've looked at the numbers. It makes sense for you from a logistics perspective, from a monetary perspective, and so forth. In terms of how you're positioning other opportunities in the region right now, do you think that what you've done can be replicated in other countries in the GCC that have very similar economic profiles?
Without doubt, and I think this is happening already. I mean, I know about a couple of upstarts. There's one in Oman called Sahar Titanium that's going to produce titanium slag, which is an important raw material that goes into titanium sponge production. There is, of course, a sponge plant that's been set up probably about 8 years ago in Saudi Arabia, just across the bridge, which is a joint venture between Toho Titanium, the Japanese, and Tasni, the oil company of Saudi Arabia. So without doubt, this region lends itself to huge opportunities in our space, at least. And I think given the voracious demand for titanium, the consumption of such doubles every 10 years. There's nothing flies without titanium. Really no operation, no prosthesis is done without titanium. So desalination industry is all dependent on titanium. So I think that the market, the domestic market here is just lend itself to more and more upstarts like ourselves.
So you said titanium consumption of demand doubles every 10 years.
Yes, I did. That's what's happening right now.
That is incredible. It sounds like best industry to be in right now.
It's a very dynamic metal at the moment, indeed.
I want to talk about supply chains as well, in terms of how do you get it out, right? In terms of where you are right now, where we are right now in Bahrain. We heard some conversations had earlier about the Red Sea. We heard how difficult it is through the Suez Canal, the geopolitical issues that are impacting the movement of goods. Igor, what are you guys doing right now to get your goods to the US?
Well, you have to consider that we're going to break the ground only in about 2 months. So we are at least a year away from doing any shipping out of Bahrain. But of course, this is a huge consideration. We're thinking about it. What is great for our business, at least, is that the percentage of the total cost of the product taken up by the freight, for example, is rather insignificant because titanium is an expensive metal. So I don't think it affects your bottom line that much. So the only thing that one has to be concerned with is the lead time. So for example, if in the normal times it takes you about 3 weeks or 4 weeks to ship your titanium raw material into Bahrain and in turn ship your product out to the United States, then you have to kind of allot for a much greater period.
Through the Cape of Good Hope, right?
Yeah.
Around South Africa.
Absolutely.
But you've done the probabilities, you've looked at the scenarios, and even with that worst case scenario, it makes sense.
Absolutely. This is an impediment, but this is not ultimately critical. And of course, I hope things will get better.
I was just about to say that. I hope in 2 years' time we're not having this conversation. I really, really hope. Meshary, tell me.
It's disrupting our export more than import. We import primarily from Brazil, for which Cape of Good Hope is a natural route. But we have clients in North Africa and Egypt for which we're struggling to deliver material for at competitive price and competitive lead time. So it's disrupting our business, basically.
Would you say that your margins are squeezed right now, Meshary?
It's a competitive business. It's a commodity business, especially in the iron ore. We produce higher grade iron ore, which gives us an edge, but it's a competitive business. We have to be agile and efficient operator to be able to make money in all cycles, basically.
Yeah, I know. Actually, I don't know why I asked that question. I feel like the commodity space is always squeezed margins, and you guys are trying to eke out more, through efficiencies. I want to check the room. Any questions? Am I asking everything you need to know? Thank you, sir. Let me get a microphone. Do we have a microphone in the front? It's on its way. Please introduce yourself and your company. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Colin Foreman. I'm the editor of Mead, so I'm a journalist. I'm interested this morning. We heard a lot of talk about the GCC growth and how it's becoming a more of an economic powerhouse. So I was interested just to know how much of your revenues are currently coming from within the GCC and whether you expect that to grow, and then some of those supply chain issues, some of the sustainability issues would decrease.
Thank you. Your Highness, would you like to tackle any of those?
Maybe.
Meshary?
I can start. I suppose my two colleagues the projects are under
Still,
we haven't started the project.
Yeah, so we're hypothesizing on those.
We export steel to the GCC. About 65% of our production. And the steel side, we're the market leader in Saudi for steel sections. In the iron pellets business, we serve almost all GCC producers, as well as North Africa. And I would say, yeah, that's a true statement. GCC is booming, and that reflects to steel consumption.
So when you say it's booming, your order book looks really strong right now.
At least for the next 12 months.
For the next 12 months, and that's basically locked in. So what are your projections, Igor, in terms of demand locally, or would you see it's more international markets?
Well, I think that certainly our base is the United States when it comes to consumption. This is where most of the titanium is consumed. So effectively, when we start the project, we rely on that notion that we have customer base over there. But be it as it may, I think that the countries of GCCs have been developing at a fast pace, and I think by the time we are producing our slabs and furthermore forgings and plates and downstream products, I think there's going to be a very healthy demand in GCC countries. It's hard to estimate, but I think that probably 4 years down the line could be 25-30%.
So something really important that you'd actually mentioned backstage as well is that Russia is actually a very important producer of titanium, and it has not been sanctioned as yet.
Not yet, but clearly there is a trend away from consuming Russian titanium because of the political fragmentation, the dependence upon Russian supply is rather precarious for Western consumers. So I think that this also creates an opportunity to Bahrain to perhaps fill in the void, if you will.
And then, Your Highness, I know for a fact that you've locked in who your offtake is going to be for the next 10 years.
Yes.
Could you give me a rundown of that? Can you mention countries specifically or geographies? What are you able to share with us at this early stage?
So we've secured an offtake agreement for the next 10 years. Mainly they're from financial institutions. So there are 3 currently, one in Europe, and I would say maybe right now it's too early to discuss, because we still haven't started construction. Hopefully within 2 months we'll begin. But I'd say we secured about 80% of the offtake for the next 10 years, and we're working on the last 20%. So hopefully.
Any more questions? Anything else? Surely you've got a question. I can continue. Oh, there we go, sir. Yes, I knew you guys needed to be nudged a little. Let me get a microphone for you, sir. Introduce yourself, please.
Nawaf Zayani, Zayani Investments. I don't have a question so much as I have a note of congratulations. We're an industrialist family in Bahrain going over 40 years. It's welcoming and refreshing to see fresh investment in industry, and I wish you all the success.
Thank you so
very much.
Thank you.
That was a really good, I love this line, because all the conversations I've been having lately is all about digitalization, AI, and the very different industries, and we've almost forgotten the very thing that is able, that enables us to do what we do. Every little thing we have here has come out of the ground, basically, has been processed, refined in some way. And I think we're focusing on new industrialization, what is it called, 4.0, 5.0, whatever it is, but we still haven't nailed the 1.0 to do it efficiently, because it is here to stay. The question is, how do we do it better, and whether we can do it better. And I wonder, Meshary, do you believe we can do it better?
We can always optimize and do better. And competition is the main driver. Bahrain is home for the best environment to do so, because it's conducive to doing business, to attracting high, skillful people who would lead to this outcome.
Igor.
Without doubt, I think that this is the incredible opportunity for our company, and you've mentioned that we've come here because of our closure, our plant in Ukraine, but really our ambitions are far greater. We want to build titanium that is of much, much higher quality. We want to be environmentally conscious, and we will, and I think that given the government support and the geopolitical landscape, I think we will be quite successful.
Your Highness.
I would say we're lucky to have such an amazing project in the PGM, because it's quite new to the region. They haven't been much involved in PGM refining, and so this is a great opportunity, since the region is growing rapidly, and we couldn't have done it without the people that are here. We have the great people from the EDB, the Economic Development Board, who are able to facilitate and speed up the process of going into these sectors and improving them, and moving Bahrain into a more sustainable economy, shifting away from the fossil fuels, and being a more diverse economy, and being more stable, so that this can foster a more strong economy.
And you're so right. To the gentleman's point, he comes from an industrialist family. I think industry has gotten a bad reputation for such a long time. It's not really one of those industries where people go, oh, that's really cool, what do? Everyone's worried about the footprints and climate change, and what kind of electricity you're consuming. So let me ask you this, Your Highness. Do you think that in the next few years, 10 years or decade, that we can really see industry being cleaned up to the point where we can have and truly call it and actually mean it. Green steel, for example. I'm still in disbelief about that, but I just wonder how you're looking at those probabilities. It's not going to come from solar and wind, but alternative energy.
I mean, of course, you've seen the advancement in technologies and what we can do to improve efficiency and sustainability, even for refineries and manufacturing facilities. There are ways to run more efficiently using renewable energy, whether it's solar, wind, hydrogen powered. So we're lucky to have great minds come together and learn from each other. And this is the beauty of Bahrain, because we would want, the best, not just for the country, but even for the region, and be an example to others that, we are using green technologies as much as we can. So I hope this can, be an example for the rest of the world, hopefully.
Look, it's a long road ahead, but we have to remain optimistic. Okay, we've got a few minutes left. Igor, I want you to tell me what you find most challenging coming into Bahrain. Is it skills? Is it, policy clearly seems to be completely comfortable at this point, but tell me what you find challenging.
So far, it's been kind of smooth sailing, I have to say.
Yeah.
We've come here a year and a half ago, and during this time, we're able to get a golden license from the government, which enables us to get all the approvals, including the environmental one, kind of a fast track. I think that ultimately, we're going to have to educate local people to melt, forge, and so on and so forth, and that, I think, is the biggest challenge that is before us. Clearly, at the outset, we're going to have to bring some talent, but educating local staff, creating a new layer of specialists in our field, which of course is non-existent today, I see as the biggest challenge.
Well, Meshary has done it all. I say if you've been in the steel industry, you can do anything.
We, if I wear my other hat, I represent Gulf Investment Corporation, an active investor in the Gulf, and I can tell you probably the Gulf is one of the best places to do business at present around the world, and Bahrain still stands out within the Gulf. So it's the easiest to attract talent to, easiest to set up in, and the best balance of quality of life with cost of living is probably Bahrain.
Are you trying to lure me here from Dubai?
Very much so, yeah.
Just asking a question. All right, so if you've got any aspiring industrialists in the room, or anyone that's in the industry as well looking to invest any further, Your Highness, I'm going to give you the last word. What's the first step that one needs to do if you want to start doing business in Bahrain?
Well, I would say you would have to visit and experience what we have. Bahrain is known for punching above its weight. Even though we're a small, island, we can still do amazing things. And we have amazing talent, people from all over the world coming in, and even the locals and their skills. I couldn't be, more proud of what Bahrain has achieved.
Thank you so much, Your Highness. Thank you so much, Igor and
Well,
Meshary.
I think that there's clearly bright future for Bahrain going forward. We came here, as I mentioned, a year and a half ago, and we felt right at home. It's a GCC country in its true sense, but yet we feel as if we were in good sense in the United States or Europe. So it's westernized. It feels very natural, and the ability to develop business here, given the government support, which is really trying hard and really helps you a lot to succeed, I think speaks volumes.
Fantastic. So while you said that, I'm going to steal another minute. Do you think it's going to be cheaper to process titanium in Bahrain than what it is in your existing plants in the US?
Oh, without doubt. Of course, it'll be cheaper, without doubt.
Fantastic. Good to know. All right. Meshary, you smiling? You're always smiling. Do you want to say anything before we say goodbye?
Now, I'd like to invite people to consider Bahrain always as a destination.
And let me tell you, I think Igor sold it. He said it's going to be so much cheaper to produce it locally than in the United States. That speaks volumes. So, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For allowing me to host this. Thank you so much, Your Highness.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Round of applause.